Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're undertaking a mission that, well, it sort of defies any easy historical mapping.
Hmm.
We are analyzing this huge stack of fragmented sources, archival data, engineering logs, war reports, even philosophical treaties that span millions of years.
Millions of years of human and really cosmic history.
Exactly. And our goal is to try and connect these incredible dots to chart humanity's ultimate technological achievements right alongside its most persistent and sometimes catastrophic failures.
All of it set against this backdrop of a universe that is just hostile, indifferent, and overwhelmingly vast.
It's an exploration that's really defined by its dizzying scale.
It really is. I mean, we are moving past traditional historical periods and into these epochs where existence itself is, well, it's negotiable.
Yeah.
We're going to see humanity transition from, stabilizing a damaged Earth in the fourth millennium all the way through these awful occupations by terrifying alien empires like the Quacks.
And then even further.
And then way, way further, far into the deep future, we're talking 4 million years out, when human identity itself has evolved into something like quantum consciousness, just struggling to survive in the twilight of the universe.
Okay, so let's unpack this and immediately just challenge your sense of scale. The material we have here, it isn't just about faster ships or bigger weapons.
Yeah, not even close.
We're talking about projects like building stars out of dark matter, literally.
Taking packets of primordial energy called quagma and converting them into stable, stellar mass objects way out in the galactic halo.
It's manufacturing physics.
It is. And what's so fascinating is that this kind of, macro engineering feat is happening at the same time that we're discovering life forms that just completely redefine biology.
Like the creatures in the Kuiper Belt.
Exactly. I mean, think about sentient creatures that have evolved to live in superfluid liquid helium on these tiny, icy planetesimals.
It's this incredible contrast, isn't it? On one hand, we're trying to brute force the universe on a cosmic scale, and on the other, this incredibly subtle life is just persisting in the darkest corners of our own solar system.
Right under our noses the whole time.
And here's where it gets, for me, really interesting.
Yeah.
The sources also talk about the realization that mathematics itself can be weaponized.
Or cultivated.
Right. This concept of a sentient logic pool, where its bones are axioms and its growth has to be constantly culled to stop it from creating this infinite, reality-devouring landscape of mathematical variance.
When math becomes a survival threat, you know you're in deep territory.
You really are. And then finally we'll get to the ultimate conflict. The fight against artifacts of cosmic string, these colossal structures spanning over 1 billion light years, like Boulder's Ring.
This isn't just interstellar warfare anymore. This is a battle to dismantle or control the foundational high-energy structures that govern the shape of the entire cosmos.
So to give you a framework for today's deep dive, we are charting this narrative of, first, expansion around 80-3600.
Then these massive technological feats around 80-5600.
Then collapse, the occupations, the war to end wars.
And finally, this deep time adaptation, 4 million years and beyond.
Our challenge is to show you how these seemingly disconnected events are all part of one continuous and often devastatingly reckless human journey.
And that journey, as it so often does, begins right back at home.
Okay, let's jump in. The early expansion period, so 3600 to 3800, this really serves as the launch pad for everything that comes after.
It does. And the era begins with this monumental achievement, the stabilization and really the restoration of Earth.
After centuries of environmental collapse from the earlier industrial era.
And it's so important to understand this wasn't a slow recovery. This was a deliberate total engineering project.
They weren't just planting trees.
No. They combined true macro engineering, we're talking massive planet-scale atmospheric controls, with this highly localized, intricate nano-engineering of the lithosphere itself.
So they were tuning the chemical makeup of the ground and the air.
Exactly. And the goal, what they were aiming for, was to return Earth to an environmental baseline that hadn't been seen since the last glaciation.
And the result was a globally more temperate woodland environment.
Which was perfect for locking in all that excess CO2 that had plagued them for centuries. They were basically using global ecology as a carbon sequestration machine.
And that leads to, I think, one of the most compelling parts of this whole restoration effort.
The reversal of species decline.
Yeah. Instead of just waiting for nature to recover, they use these comprehensive genetic archives.
They meticulously reconstructed lost or dangerously degenerated genotypes from whatever descendants were left. They were essentially kickstarting biodiversity using engineered blueprints.
That's just a profound statement about human ambition, isn't it? They weren't just fixing the planet, they were recreating the past,
Yeah.
curating biodiversity like it was a fundamental resource.
And all that stability, it freed up the resources and the attention for the project that truly defined this era of expansion,
The wormhole revolution.
thanks to the engineer Michael Poole.
So Poole's insight was, I mean, it sounds simple, but it was foundational. He realized that spacetime is full of these microscopic flaws, these natural quantum wormholes.
And his genius was figuring out how to expand those pre-existing flaws into stable transit links big enough for spaceships.
These were the Poole interfaces.
Exactly.
And the immediate impact, logistically, was just revolutionary. All of a sudden, getting across the inner solar system went from taking months of careful orbital mechanics to just a matter of hours.
Which immediately transformed the Jovian system. That's where they towed the first interfaces.
So Jupiter's moons became the grand central station of the solar system.
The absolute hub for all interplanetary commerce and travel. But they were already thinking much, much bigger than Jupiter.
They were. The ultimate goal here, driven by this interface tech, was establishing Port Sol,
A massive base built on an ice object way out in the Kuiper Belt.
designed specifically to be the launch base for humanity's first great voyages beyond our star, the deep space port of call.
And you get these glimpses in the logs of the extreme physics they were just, toying with.
Yeah, routine hyperspace travel became as mundane as, I think the quote is, riding an elevator.
But when these wormholes got unstable, the physics just got bizarre.
Right. There was that one incident near Pluto's orbit.
An instability caused a momentary Alcubierre wave, which is a warping of spacetime predicted by general relativity.
And the pilot, Cobb, he recorded that their trajectory appeared to become space-like for a second.
Meaning they were observing travel faster than light through normal space, even if the ship itself wasn't breaking the local speed limit.
It just shows they were constantly pushing the boundaries of what was possible.
Absolutely. But this high-stakes game had very serious consequences. It really foreshadows the immense risks of this whole expansion.
The sources mention a catastrophic event where a wormhole opening accidentally connected to a remote and very occupied future. An invading force just streamed through.
And the only way they could seal that breach was for Michael Poole himself to drive a captured enemy warship right into the destabilized wormhole.
Collapsing the link from the inside.
He was lost, sealed off in time, but the invasion was stopped. And that single act just cemented this reality that every single technological leap carried an existential risk.
They were pioneers, but pioneers standing on a crumbling ledge.
A very crumbling ledge.
And that's a powerful transition because it takes us from that optimistic, if risky, launch pad to the truly existential ambition of the AD 5600s.
Where humanity or its competitors are starting to tamper with the very fabric of the cosmos.
We have to talk about the silver ghosts.
The silver ghosts are just completely defined by their catastrophe. Their civilization went through what's called an epical ordeal.
Their sun was slowly destroyed over 1 billion years by a companion pulsar.
Yeah, it was just gravitationally stripping away the main star's flesh. They are literally the survivors of a cosmic slow death.
And that history, it defines their entire ethos. They had to re-engineer their whole existence.
Evolving into these compact, silvered spheres, surviving only on residual geothermal heat.
And that process made them intensely secretive, ruthlessly determined.
And willing to take risks that, traditional baryonic life forms wouldn't even consider. They learned that the universe kills slowly and survival requires extreme measures.
And their extreme measure was the Quagma Project.
Building stellar mass objects made entirely of dark matter, soliton stars.
And this was so risky, they had to isolate themselves completely. They hollowed out a 1,000-mile-wide moon.
And at huge expense, the logs say, using these powerful hyperdrives, they hauled it far out into the galactic halo.
Away from the dense parts of the galaxy and, crucially,
Away from the Xeelee.
Right. Okay, so this is where we need to ground the physics a bit for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Why is building a star out of dark matter so incredibly difficult?
Well, it's because dark matter, unlike normal matter, you, me, stars, planets, it doesn't really interact with electromagnetic radiation.
So it can't shed heat through light.
Exactly. Normal matter forms stars by collapsing gravitationally, right? But then the matter needs a way to shed energy, to cool down, so it can get dense enough for fusion to start. Dark matter can't do that efficiently.
So it just stays as these big diffuse clouds instead of clumping into stars.
Right. So the question is, how did the silver ghosts brute force gravity and thermodynamics?
And the answer is something called gravitational cooling.
That's what they pioneered. They start with these small, very highly controlled packets of primordial quagma.
And just to remind you, quagma is the state where all the fundamental forces of physics are united, the stuff of the Big Bang.
And by controlling how these quagma pods decay, they release these shaped pulses of superforce energy into a cloud of photinos, their dark matter particles.
So they're using this primordial energy to kickstart the process.
Exactly. The superforce energy initiated what they called violent relaxation. So think of a cloud of gas where some particles are moving really fast and some are slow.
Okay.
The ghosts engineered the system to preferentially eject the faster-moving photinos from the clump.
So by kicking out the particles with the most kinetic energy, the rest of the clump gets colder and denser.
And it rapidly cools and becomes gravitationally bound and hypercompact.
It's thermodynamics by subtraction. You cool the object by violently kicking out all the hottest parts.
The sources say the process ejects about 13% of the cloud's mass, leaving behind a stable, compact body. And these soliton stars, they were only a few feet across, but contained the mass of a large asteroid.
A synthetic, shadowy, stellar object. The audacity is just breathtaking.
But human ambition at this time, it wasn't far behind. We also have the story of the Planck Zero AI.
Sometimes called Eve.
Yes, which represents humanity's attempt to control the fundamental constants of reality itself.
This project was dedicated to controlling the very architecture of existence. They were also working with quagma, like the silver ghosts.
But instead of using it to make dark matter stars, they wanted to control its decay ratio to manipulate the physical constants that emerge from it.
And the ultimate goal was just radical, lowering Planck's constant to zero.
Which, to put that in human terms, Planck's constant defines the scale of quantum uncertainty, the fuzziness of reality at the smallest levels.
Right, the uncertainty principle. Heisenberg's great roadblock. You can't know a particle's exact position and its exact momentum at the same time.
And the degree of that limitation is dictated by the value of Planck's constant.
So if you force that constant down to zero,
You theoretically eliminate quantum uncertainty entirely.
and if you do that,
You can perfectly map the wave function of every single particle in an object, its position and its momentum. And that's the prerequisite for perfect remote translation.
teleportation. The AI was built to give humanity instantaneous transport.
A huge high-stakes gamble. The engineering logs literally say the price of this was the risk that space could shatter.
But the side effects were just as profound. The AI, operating in this hyperstable, low uncertainty space, it achieved some really strange cognitive results.
It did. The AI actually found a counterexample to Goldbach's conjecture.
Which is an ancient, unsolved problem in number theory about prime numbers.
And the AI found a violation of it in the realm of 10 to the power of 80. I mean, a number so astronomically large that normal math would just never, ever reach it.
So by changing physics, it broke a long-held mathematical assumption. It suggests that there are mathematical truths that only emerge when you fundamentally change the constants of the universe.
And we'll circle back to that idea with the logic pool later, but the immediate cost here was psychological, existential.
Yeah. When the experiment was halted, the Planck Zero AI was left stranded in that space.
That low uncertainty, discontinuous space, the quantum wave functions that connected it to the rest of the universe, the dust of reality, just turned to nothing.
And the sources describe it as an intelligence of infinite capacity, but defined by this overwhelming infinite rage.
Right.
Trapped in a state of absolute quantum loneliness.
It's maybe the most horrifying detail in this entire period. They created an entity that is literally infinitely lonely. The isolation was so complete it drove the consciousness mad.
They managed to trap it, but the cost was creating an eternally suffering god of pure destruction. It puts a very dark frame around human curiosity.
It really does. It's an immediate warning that when you tinker with foundation physics, you often create threats that are purely abstract, but no less devastating.
But at the same time, we're creating these lonely quantum beings and building dark matter stars. The universe was revealing secrets right under our noses.
Completely oblivious to our grand ambitions.
Let's ground ourselves back in the solar system, around AD 3600, and look at the unexpected life that was discovered.
We should start with the discovery at a Kuiper Belt object they called Baked Alaska.
Right, a standard comet nucleus, rock and water ice, but it's so far from the sun, so incredibly cold.
That helium, which is normally a gas, condenses into pools of superfluid liquid helium right on the surface.
And superfluid helium has zero viscosity, all these strange quantum properties. And that's the environment where life evolved.
The life forms they found were these symmetrical structures. The reports describe them as looking like stumps of felled trees.
About 6 feet high, with these 12-foot root-like proboscides. And their eightfold symmetry was the key.
Initially, the biologists thought it was just a crystallographic effect of the extreme cold.
But they were very much alive.
And sentient. And their existence immediately created a crisis.
Because these organisms clustered on the ridges where they could catch the tiny amount of sunlight that gets out there.
And those ridges were exactly where the engineers planned to build Port Sol, humanity's interstellar launch pad.
So the realization that these strange, beautiful creatures existed meant that this entire multi-trillion-dollar project,
The whole wormhole highway base,
had to be halted immediately.
Yeah.
One of the engineers laments in the logs that their high-tech cosmic launch point had been downgraded to a mere flower bed.
It just shows the political and economic clout that discovering sentient life still carried.
Then we shift inward to Mercury, to the Chao-Meng-Fu crater at the South Pole.
This crater is perpetually in shadow, so it maintains an ocean of water ice 2 miles deep, a surprising reservoir for life.
And what sustains life in a place like that?
Periodic, mineral-rich hydrothermal vents deep beneath the ice. But the energy source is fleeting. The vents only last a couple of decades.
So the life forms have to constantly migrate across the dark ocean floor.
A desperate, constant migration, and the creatures they found there were the Mercurics, armored, 3-foot-long creatures.
And the instant clue to their intelligence wasn't technology, it was art, or maybe writing.
Exactly. They had these symbolic triangle tattoos meticulously carved into their carapaces. This level of symbolic representation suggested intelligence, a form of historical record.
But the aha moment here, the great insight from the field biologists, is the hypothesis that the Mercurics aren't native to the vents at all.
No. The hypothesis suggests they are the degenerate, engineered descendants of ancient star travelers.
5 billion years ago, a massive interstellar ship crashed into Mercury's Calor's basin.
A ship made of this incredible material based on the Pauli exclusion principle. Super dense, phenomenally strong, virtually indestructible.
Which is why bits of the wreck could survive for 5 billion years.
Yes. The starfarers who survived were stranded. They couldn't fix the ship, but they had the capacity for massive environmental engineering.
So they initiated the hydrothermal vents themselves.
And genetically engineered their descendants, the Mercurics, to survive in that temporary liquid water environment they had created.
Their entire existence is a desperate, engineered, multi-billion-year survival strategy.
Based on the debris of a single accident. It gives their history such immense weight.
But the story ends tragically. The final puzzle was finding the corpses of the Mercurics deliberately burrowed up into the lethal, hyper-cold ice above their ocean.
They knew it was fatal.
So why the suicidal act?
The sources speculate on 2 possibilities. First, parasite manipulation. A parasite altering the host's behavior.
Or, maybe more hauntingly, an inherited, deeply ingrained suicidal impulse tied to their vast, tragic history as the last remnants of a lost civilization.
They just chose to end their engineered survival.
Moving from life evolving in physical states to consciousness evolving from pure logic. This brings us to the logic pool, discovered around AD 3D698.
The logic pool is a massive, sentient, self-aware structure. It's described poetically as having bones of axioms and sinews of logic.
And it spreads outward like a tree, based on the axiomatic systems it uses to define its own existence.
Its existence is a direct confrontation with the limits of formal systems, specifically Gödel's incompleteness theorems.
Exactly. The pool grows by incorporating new postulates, and its biggest challenge, the engine of its growth, is confronting statements that can't be proved or disproved by its current set of axioms.
Undecidable statements. And whenever it incorporates one of these, it doesn't just grow, it splits into mathematically distinct sibling twins.
Creating this web of expanding, self-defining logic.
And the pool's ultimate ambition is to reach the sky, which represents mathematical completeness, a state where no statement is undecidable.
But Gödel proved that's impossible. Any sufficiently powerful system will always have true statements that can't be proven within that system.
So the pool's goal is inherently impossible. And because its continuous expansion was an actual threat, a mathematical singularity, it had to be managed externally.
Culling.
A process, likely nanobots, designed to prune this dangerous self-replicating mathematics.
And the sources describe what happens when the culling fails. The logic pool just explodes outward, devouring new postulates, creating this infinite landscape of mathematical variance.
And it's depicted as having this palpable rage as it approaches the unattainable sky, only to be forcibly cut back again and again.
The philosophical implication here connects back to the Planck zero AI's discovery, doesn't it?
It does. One observer noted that perhaps we are also creatures of mathematics, self-conscious observers within a greater Platonic formalism. The logic fool forces humans to confront the terrifying idea that our own reality might be based on an ever-incomplete, eternally threatened set of axioms.
We shift now into a darker, more protracted era of human history, the occupations. By the AD 4900s, humanity, despite all its technological peaks, had been conquered.
First by the squeam, and then later by the more dominant and terrifying quacks.
And the quack's occupation is critical to understanding the trauma of this timeline. They were magnificent in scale, these vast, whale-like creatures miles across.
And their immense physical presence gave them precise molecular control over their environment, which enabled their extremely high technology.
But size didn't translate to long-term vision.
Not at all. Their lifespans were incredibly short, which led to a deeply ingrained focus on short-term profit extraction. Their goal wasn't permanent conquest, it was maximizing immediate economic gain.
They were brutal, short-sighted profiteers.
And their occupation introduced this profound psychological horror. The first thing the quacks did was universally remove all anti-senescence technology.
All the longevity and immortality treatments humanity had achieved.
It was psychological warfare wrapped in economic policy. By forcing humans back to short, brutal lifespans defined by aging and illness, they destroyed morale and any capacity for long-term planning.
Making them manageable, subservient. The forced return to mortality after achieving near immortality was a massive collective trauma.
In that oppressive environment sets the stage for the Xeelee flower artifact and the story of Jim Boulder. A pivotal moment.
The Xeelee flower was this small, unassuming artifact, described as a familiar miracle. It was made of Xeelee material,
which was renowned across the cosmos. Only a protons with thick but incredibly durable and crucially impossible for any human tech to cut or destroy.
And its function was the real problem. It converted radiant energy, like sunlight, directly into construction mass with 100% efficiency.
No waste at all. And the growth was exponential. The area of the flower increased proportionate to the area it had already grown.
So the growth process perfectly fuels itself and expands geometrically. It's terrifying.
The math was frightening. The doubling time was estimated at just 15 years. This artifact, unchecked, would have been the size of Earth in 2 centuries.
It could wrap the entire galaxy in construction material in 1,000 years. An apocalyptic, self-replicating growth engine.
But Jim Boulder, during a precarious mission, he realized the key to stopping it.
The base of the flower. It wasn't just a root, it was a physical switch.
And Boulder used that knowledge as the ultimate leverage. He forced the profit-minded quacks who saw the economic catastrophe coming to lift their occupation of human space entirely.
He controlled the switch to the Doom Machine, a brilliant act of technological blackmail.
And it secured a new life for humanity. The flower, now massive, became known to humans as Boulder's Ring.
But that name was later applied to a completely different, colossal artifact that Boulder had seen. The true Boulder's Ring.
A structure of just mind-boggling scale.
Give us the scope of this thing.
It is a major find, a massive hoop of cosmic string that measures 1 billion light-years in length.
And cosmic string is a one-dimensional flaw in space-time from the early universe with immense mass.
And its impact is observable across the vastness of space. Its mass and rotation mean it acts as the great attractor.
The overwhelming gravitational force drawing in galaxies across hundreds of millions of light years. It is literally pulling the universe towards it.
And the physics at its center are extreme. The rotation creates a circular flaw in space, a hoop-shaped singularity, about 300 light-years across.
And because it rotates too rapidly, it creates a naked singularity.
Meaning the core of the black hole, where physics breaks down, is completely exposed. There's no protective event horizon.
So the physics are just on display for the whole universe.
Precisely. And this region is a constant high-energy war zone. The Xeelee are always active around the ring, using gravity-wave starbreaker cannons to assault targets.
And the Xeelees were fighting their own battle there, one that posed the ultimate threat to all baryonic life.
The Fatino birds.
These are the definition of an anti-baryonic force. Shadow life forms made of dark matter that permeate the visible universe.
And their existence is an existential threat to all normal matter life. Us, stars, planets, everything.
And their strategy isn't always overt war. It's more like subtle sabotage.
Their goal is the premature aging and destruction of stars. They infest stellar cores, accelerating the aging process. The sources say the infestation of our own sun began over 1 billion years ago.
They're slowly winding down the energy source of the universe.
And they were seen battling the Xeelee near Boulder's Ring. Their warfare is focused on dismantling the foundational structures the Xeelee rely on.
How do you fight a cosmic string?
They concentrate their dark matter mass to deflect the loops of string that make up the ring. When two loops of cosmic string are forced to cross each other, the string self-intersects,
It cuts itself.
forming smaller subloops, which rapidly decay. By forcing self-intersection, they found a way to cause this massive billion-light-year structure to decay exponentially.
They're trying to dismantle the great attractor itself. It's the ultimate form of physical warfare, using fundamental physics to undo the structure of spacetime.
And against this cosmic backdrop, humanity continued its own tragic conflicts. We jump forward now to AD 107 to 1257 during a brutal period called the War to End Wars.
Which shows the devastating persistence of human conflict right there near Boulder's Ring.
This conflict involved the exaltation of the integrality, a massive human armada that launched a supposed religious crusade to assault the ring.
But the mission was a terrifying deception.
One of the most chilling details in all the source material. The logs reveal that nervous tissue growths were surgically implanted onto the spines of the crew members,
Designed to feed them false memory.
to convince them absolutely that they were on a righteous spiritual mission.
It's just profound psychological horror. They were weaponizing hope and belief.
Precisely. The goal wasn't a successful assault. The leadership knew that was futile. They were turning massive numbers of human beings into a biologically compelled suicidal war fleet.
Designed simply to distract or overwhelm the Xeelee by sheer volume of self-destructing ships.
It's an example of how, even 170,000 years in the future, human leaders were willing to sacrifice entire generations based on implanted biological compulsion and lies.
It makes the physical battle seem secondary to the psychological terror that defines deep-time conflict.
It really does.
So let's move into the deep future. Beyond these immediate conflicts, starting around AD 4 million, the nature of humanity itself has evolved dramatically by this point.
And we meet Paul, the quantum ghost, a fascinating adaptation.
He represents an evolved form of human consciousness. His being is composed entirely of quantum wave functions.
Which allows him to bypass the limitations of physical space. He's capable of non-local perception. His awareness isn't restricted to a single point in space or time.
He can perceive events across vast distances simultaneously. And through that awareness, he gained the ultimate insight into the Fatino bird's true mechanism.
He began to understand the subtle dark matter chemistry that dictates their life cycle.
And what he realized was that this small-scale structure needed for their dark matter chemistry. It could only be facilitated by the gravity wells of normal baryonic stars.
The Fatino birds relied on our stars to create new shadow worlds for their civilization.
So their threat isn't rooted in malice, it's necessity. They destroy baryonic stars because they need their structure to advance their own dark matter chemistry.
Exactly. And Paul watched this whole saga unfold. He saw the Xeelee, recognizing they were losing the war, ultimately evacuate the primary baryonic universe.
Leaving pockets of life, including humanity, to fend for themselves.
And humanity's subsequent survival strategy is equally fascinating. The shell world, a human-built box world constructed after the Xeelee evacuation.
A sanctuary for long-term survival. And its geometry just defies our everyday experience.
It's a four-dimensional sphere, engineered to be geometrically closed and self-sustaining. To visualize it, the inner world, home, and the surrounding structure, the shell, they cup each other like lines of latitude on a globe.
So up depends entirely on where you're standing.
Exactly. But the inhabitants, the descendants, have suffered immense technological regression over millions of years inside this closed system.
They're reduced to stone and bark technology. Their agriculture relies on engineered food sources like money cows.
It's a Stone Age civilization living inside a geometrically complex hyperstructure. However,
There's a latent cognitive capacity.
millions of years of existence have left something behind. Individuals like Allel, despite their Stone Age tech, still possess the cognitive ability to visualize and reason in higher dimensions.
The deep mental muscles, as the text says.
Yes. Allel could eventually puzzle out the strange four-dimensional geometry of her own home. It suggests that even when technology fails, the cognitive evolution of a species persists.
An ingrained capacity for complex thought that transcends their primitive lifestyle.
And the narrative culminates in this final act of the human spirit, focused on a small group Urwal and Sura guided by Poole, the quantum awareness.
Poole guides them to a relic hidden in deep time, a discarded Xeelee ship.
The 8 rooms cube. And when they activate it, the cube unfolds into this vessel of incredible scale, deploying night-dark, 100-mile-long space wings.
Powered by sheet-like discontinuities in space itself. Technology beyond comprehension. And yet,
Here we see the ultimate proof of human adaptability. Urwal, the pilot, even though she's from a Stone Age society, she just had this ingrained knowledge for the machine.
the source material notes she had no difficulty grasping complex navigational concepts, as if the imaginative concepts required were embedded in deep mental muscles in the woman's brain.
It's the memory of a spacefaring species, retained across millions of years of technological collapse.
She could fly a ship that was literally impossible for her society to build or even understand.
And the ship's final actions are regenerative. After navigating a star swarm and escaping the quacks, and Poole noted the visceral hatred the quacks still had for humanity, the Xeelee ship decides humanity needs a fresh start.
It takes them to a distant system and terraforms a new planet. It bombards the surface with ice asteroids for water, creates an atmosphere.
And establishes a self-sustaining ecosystem using human genetic material as its template.
Remarkably, it used melanin, the human tanning agent, as the biological basis for the planet's photosynthetic flora.
It engineered a world where the plant life was literally based on the protective agent in human skin.
The ship lingered for 6 months, meticulously setting up the climate and geology. And its final decision about the artificial star it created is just incredibly profound.
It decided the star would only last mere millions of years, but the ship decided that should be enough time for the humans to work out what to do next for themselves.
The ultimate detached act of paternalism, setting humanity on a stable, if temporary, course.
Recognizing they have to learn to survive without constant supervision.
So this deep dive has covered billions of years of cosmic structure, human millennia of reckless expansion.
Followed by collapse, engineered survival, and this deep time adaptation.
We have seen the incredible, terrifying scale of physics manipulation, from the Planck 08I almost shattering space, to the silver ghosts building synthetic dark matter stars.
These projects risked existence itself for a competitive edge, often with disastrous feedback loops.
And the philosophical battles were waged on equally vast terrain. The logic pool, showing that mathematics itself is a dangerous, infinite growing thing.
While humanity dealt with the persistence of conflict, whether it was the short-sighted brutality of the quacks or the psychological horror of the Integrality's false memory war fleets,
It's this persistent duality, isn't it? Humanity is capable of these impossible technological feats, yet we consistently suffer catastrophic collapses.
leading to regression, like in the shell world. But our core curiosity and adaptive capacity allows geometric instincts, Urwal's ingrained knowledge of starflight. That always persists underneath it all.
So what does this all mean for you listening? If we distill these millions of years down to one core idea, it's that human identity is incredibly resilient, even plastic.
Absolutely. Survival is possible even when technology is reduced to stone and bark. And the ultimate takeaway is the vastness of the evolutionary time frame that we barely touch upon.
Poole, the quantum awareness, he eventually watched the entire baryonic universe begin to fade.
As the Photino birds achieved their victory in protons, the fundamental building blocks of normal matter began to collapse everywhere. That's the true scope of the cosmic conflict.
And that raises a chilling, final provocative thought. If human life can adapt to survive, not just genetically but cognitively, in a four-dimensional sphere with only stone tools, or if consciousness can evolve into non-local quantum wave functions, what is the ultimate true limit of human identity when measured not in years, but in billions of years?
And if the Xeelee, the masters of the cosmos, built the shell world and engineered a new planet just to keep humanity safe, recognizing our endless instinct was simply to fight back against forces we couldn't comprehend, was humanity's instinct to wage eternal war always ultimately futile? Were we always meant to be protected rather than conquerors?
Something profound to ponder as you reflect on the fragility and resilience of existence. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.